Hey guys, guess what? Christmas came early yesterday. Woo! We are going to trial. This is so historic, and you know what? I couldn't have done it without you. About a little over a day ago, I stood here on this stage and I said, please pray, not just for me, pray for our attorneys, pray for our witnesses, pray for the judge, my goodness. You did it, and yesterday we got great news. We're taking these bastards to trial. And I'm so excited because you know that I ran against our own version of Joe Biden here, Katie Hobbs. Basement Hobbs.
Well, hello out there. How's everybody doing? Is everybody pretty conservative in New York? Christopher Wright. And Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to all my patriots out there. Much love to you and your families. Hope you guys are enjoying the holidays. And I'm long, I'm back, long gone for a minute. I've been running around like a madman. I've been upstate for the Lee Zeldin campaign, as some of you know, going door to door, campaigning for his campaign. Then I went down south for the runoff for Herschel Walker. So I just got back to New York. So I'm just ready to hit the ground running, help out my peoples, and get back to my patriots out there. So first and foremost, I guess you guys know there's been a lot going on. As you guys saw, my girl Kari Lake was running for governor in Arizona, and the news just came out as of yesterday that unfortunately you guys heard that she said she was going to trial, and that clip I just played, and the trial just ended, and they found out that they're going to let Katie Hobbs is declared the winner on a local level, but Kari Lake is going to appeal on a Supreme Court level. So this is far from over, folks. So this is why I want to do this video today, because I feel like this woman's been fighting. She's a true warrior. Just getting out there, getting it done, more backbone than a lot of Republicans I've seen in my life, especially since Trump. Just really getting out there and showing that they're not going to just sit back and bow down to the crazy radical leftist mob. Because, in my opinion, what happened to our election is the same thing that happened in 2020. So that's why I want to go in details, because we talked about the left. The left wants to talk about us, and they want to say, "Oh, we're election deniers, this, that, and the third," because of what happened in 2020. But they went 4 years straight after 2016 saying that, "Oh, Trump stole the election. Oh, he was colluding with Russia, yada, 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 yada." All the stuff. They had no evidence. We were just supposed to sit there and just believe their hearsay. And now that we're saying no, that something happened in 2020, they're saying that we're election deniers and wants to shut up and be quiet and go speak out in the corner somewhere. But we have evidence. Big difference. Big difference when you're speaking about a situation when you have evidence, when you don't have evidence. And it's funny that we're talking about a situation that requires a lot of evidence in a courtroom. So I wanted to speak about the whole Kari Lake versus Katie Hobbs race for governor in Arizona. Basement Hobbs, that's Kari Lake like to call her. I like that name, by the way. And the first thing I want to speak about is just the whole situation that happened in Arizona. People that are kind of new to the subject, there's been a lot going on. I kind of want to just bring up this tweet that Kari Lake tweeted and kind of show you guys, kind of because it gives a broad idea about what happened in Arizona here. So give me 1 second. Pull this up. All right, here we go. So it says they printed mutant ballots on election day using 19-inch image on a 20-inch ballot. That's why the tabulators rejected the ballots, and that's why chaos ensued as Lake supporters flooded voting centers to cast ballots. Clowns and crooks run our elections. Hashtag Lake trial, hashtag sabotage. And it shows you the machine there. There's like a little video clip if you go on to Twitter, and it shows you the ballot getting rejected from the tabulator there. So it pretty much sums up the main situation that was happening on election day there. It was the tabulators. So a lot of people that were for people that wanted to know, like, the way it worked statistically, 93% of the early voters had their ballot and their survey completed when they cast their vote. Their vote was casted. It was all good. 93% of people that did the early voting process worked perfectly fine. Now, on election day, the voters that came on election day in Arizona, there's only about a 72% success rate on election day. And why is that, you might ask? Well, there was videos and clips of people, there was lines outside of voting locations. They changed the whole map design of where your voting location is going to be on the day of election day. So they did all this like kind of funny, weird, just messing with the voting process in Arizona. And we all know about Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Georgia in 2020 and how they had all kinds of issues going on back then. So it seems like nothing's been changed in 4 years. 4 years later, we're still having the same issues, the same states. So in my opinion, the Rhino GOP is showing no backbone because they should have been on top of this. They should have been on top of this the day after the election in 2020. They should have been on top of this, and this should have been corrected by now. We should be seeing some kind of corrections by now. The fact that the same states are showing the same issues, I mean, what else do you need to see here, people? Come on, man. Where we got to be on offense? Where's the offense? Like I said, it's one thing I always say about the Republican Party compared to Democrats. I can't stand the Democrats. I can't stand the left, but they are always on offense. They do come together as a team and go on offense when we are always playing defense. We're always, playing catch up with these guys. So there is a clip. Oh, by the way, I know I mentioned the ballots, but let me show you guys actually the ballot, what it looks like, so you guys can get an idea. So, like, again, I can show you that I'm bringing evidence. So you see the 19-inch ballot here, and the other one is the 18-inch ballot. So, like you said, on a day of voting, if you had a 19-inch ballot on hand and you went to the tabulator, it was not going to accept the vote that you cast, which was causing people like a hold up in lines and everything else like that. So there was, like I said, people waiting out in lines. They had elderly people. You had people with kids. You had people who had responsibilities. You had the people would have lives and they're adults. They got things they got to do, and they were not able to vote. So these people just were in situations where they were just standing around and trying to figure out what to do, what they could do. So they'll say they'll come back, and some came back, some didn't. But you know how this goes. That's why it's so important to have on election day have the whole process figured out. So when election day comes, you don't have this hassle. So people don't have their votes go to waste. This is important in this country to have. This is one of the most important rights we have as citizens of this country. People died for us to have these rights to vote as citizens. And now we're at a point where people can't cast their vote and they're on election day. So early voters they got a better chance. If you early vote, do you do on election day? It doesn't make any sense. But I'm going to go ahead and play some clips for you guys. First clip I want to play for you is a guy by the name of Scott Jarrett, and who he is, he's a Maricopa County elections director. And he was one that spoke. He spoke in the trial on day one. And he came back, I believe it was day 3. He came back and spoke again because he had so many holes in his original story. And this guy was one of the people that was on the side with Katie Hobbs, and one of her people giving a statement. So let's hear what he had to say on this. Listen very closely because I want you guys to hear. Because technically, what he's doing here is perjury. I mean, to be technical. I mean, because if it's true that if he's not being totally truthful on his initial statement to confirm to his later on statement, that could be considered perjury in court, and he could be in some serious trouble with that. That's a felony right there. So let's see what happens right here with this report.
Did you hear of any reports of that occurring in the 2022 general election?
I did not.
If that occurred, would that be a failure of Maricopa County's election process?
I'm not aware of it occurring, and I'd be surprised if there was a ballot on the printer that had a 19-inch ballot on it.
I understand that, sir, but...
And the reason why is we did not design a 2022 general election on a 19-inch ballot. That ballot does not exist. The only ballot that exists is a 20-inch ballot.
And when you say redesigned, who designed the ballot? Is that outsourced to another company, or is that done in-house by Maricopa?
In-house by Maricopa County's staff.
What department would that staff fall under? Is there a specific name for it?
Our ballot tabulation team, so it reports to me.
And do you maintain records as to the ballot definition that was created for the 2022 general election?
Yes, we have records of all the ballots that were designed.
And so I'll go back to my question again. If a 19-inch ballot image was put on a 20-inch paper in the 2022 general election, would that be a failure of your election process?
It would, if something like that happened, which I don't know how it would, yes, it would have been a mistake.
Could that have also been a deliberate act?
Again, you're asking me to speculate about things that I have no knowledge of occurring. So I don't know if it could have been a deliberate act or not. I don't believe that that occurred.
How involved are you in creating the ballot definition?
So my team does, and then I overview it, and I'll review examples of those.
Wow. Wow. So you guys heard it there. He said at that period of time, that was day one, like I said before, the first day of the trial, he came and spoke. And he said that of his knowledge, and this is the Maricopa County Elections Director speaking here. This isn't a nobody. This is somebody off the streets. He said of his knowledge, there was no 19-inch ballot. There was only the 20-inch one that was printed out. And he said if there was a 19-inch one, then of course, then that would, of course, not count because but from his knowledge, it doesn't even exist. So what I just showed you earlier, this here, proves it does exist because there it is right there. There's your 19-inch and there's your 20-inch. So what he was doing right there was just completely lying, and he was trying to play naive. And you saw how when people are lying in court and they're trying to word things a certain way, like trying to wiggle around and dance around the subject, or they ask a question asked to them by the attorney, and then they'll say try to wiggle out of it and not exactly answer it fully because they know in terms of court, if they say certain words, it could get them in serious trouble. And you saw him talking like that at first. And then when he kept on, the attorney kept pushing and pushing and pushing, he eventually did say, yeah, not from his knowledge, there was no such thing. And come to find out there was. So, and there's not just that. I mean, there's other things here too. I mean, that's one of the things we came to that, the 19 to 20-inch situation. You also had the situation here. And this is the situation with signatures, and I'll just read what it says here. It says, below is example of 2020 ballot envelope submitted in Maricopa County with the ballot signature shown on the left, official, the signature of the voter shown on the right. The fact of these two signatures do not match is clear even from a cursory glance. Maricopa County election officials allowed tens of thousands of ballots with signature mismatches like this one to be counted in 2020. They did the same thing in the 2022 general election. So that not just the only thing was the signature with the the difference in the size of the ballots with 19 and 20-inch different sizes that the machine was able to calculate, but you also have the signature situation where the signatures are not matching, all these ballots getting counted with signatures do not match. So that's another situation. But this all occurred so quickly with Kari Lake situation that she was kind of like pushing the corner when it came to being able to go on offense. Like she had a very short period of time to work very fast, and she did quite a bit for a short period of time. I got to give her credit. Mike Lindell, shout to him for throwing financially helping out with her court trials and everything like that. But she did very impressive of getting out information to the public of what was going on, because in my opinion, she made it clear that there was obviously tampering going on in the election. And like I said, with the signatures, I just brought that up. They didn't even try that into the court case that just recently happened. They didn't include the signature comparison in that. So that was something that there's 12 things they came ready to challenge when it came to the whole count of the voter count. But I'll say only like 2 or 3 they actually were able to take the trial. And this is one of them was the 20-inch, 19-inch different size in the ballots and how that messed up the counting from the machine from the tabulator. But the signature comparison, unfortunately, they weren't able to use that one. But I still want to bring that information up because, again, this is not something you just turn a blind eye to. This is, evidence right clear in your face, clear as day. Okay. So another thing I want to talk about, another important topic I want to speak on that was concerning as well, let me pull it up here, is this right here. Let me get a closer look. So if you see here, it says the Kari Lake trial reveals 42.5% of randomly examined ballots were improper. According to Republican governor candidate Kari Lake's legal team, 42.5% of examined ballots in Maricopa County of the 2022 governor's race were illegitimate. Lake's trials began on Wednesday, where she's attempting to prove that the white scale, and it just goes on to that. It says the Lake War Room tweeted on Wednesday that 48 out of 113 ballots were reviewed during the examination, 19-inch ballots produced on 20-inch paper. So back into the size of the ballots, but they did, like I said, 42.5% of randomly examined ballots were improper. So this is how many we're talking about. Like, you can do the math on that. I know that's not all the ballots. You know, it's impossible pretty much to get the exact number on every single voter and every ballot, and you know which one is. But the fact that they were able to do a random selection and 42.5% of them were improper. I mean, come on, folks. I mean, I don't care what side you're on the left or the right. If this was your opposing person who was running, and you know, I'm sorry, this is the candidate you were supporting running, doing something like this. I mean, how could you stand by somebody like a candidate like this? I don't care if he was a Republican or a Democrat, doesn't matter. It's like, this is what this country needs. We need morality back. It's more than anything, man. This is immoral. That's what's going on here. But there's another clip I wanted to play you guys with Scott Jarrett. And this is the one I was telling you about, that he came back and spoke again about what they call shrink to fit, with the 19-inch compared to the 20-inch size ballots. The term they were using was shrink to fit, is when they spoke about it in trial. So I want to have a clip of when they bring Scott back, and he speaks about, you know, hey, what happened from what he said before to now. So let's see what he has to say.
You did not mention this in your testimony yesterday, did you?
I did not.
Did you publish anywhere that there was this shrink to fit issue after the election?
We've not.
So you didn't tell the public, hey, we've discovered. I mean, you're performing a root cause analysis and you find out that there was this shrink to fit issue that gave rise to problems in the tabulators, and you did not inform the public about this.
We're still in the process of our root cause analysis.
Okay.
Wow. Still in the process of root cause analysis. So you guys saw it firsthand there. That was right in your face. That was perjury. You saw the first clip I played you with Scott Jeffries, where he said that from what his knowledge, and this guy's the director here. So this guy, I mean, if he doesn't have the knowledge, who would? He said from his knowledge, there is no 19-inch ballot, only the 20-inch. And now you see him saying, yes, on the day of the election, that there was a 20-inch and a 19-inch, and it was causing issues. So why didn't he say that from the jump? Why didn't he say that on the first day when he came to trial? He said that, yeah, from my knowledge, it was only the 20-inch, but the day of the election, there was a 19-inch that was swirling around, and it was causing problems. Just be honest. Why was he at first claiming there was nothing? And then when they pulled his card and they said, no, we know the whole truth, he came back and wanted to clarify again, because he knew he was in hot water. And this is who we're dealing with. So I want you guys to pay attention to the people they have testify that are on the side of Katie Hobbs compared to people that testified on the side of Kari Lake. So now we just heard Scott Jeffries on day one compared to day three, when he switched his story from no knowledge at all to, well, yeah, maybe there was something swirling around, like big whoop, you know. Big whoop. 42.5% of people randomly tested didn't have their vote counted. Like, this is not a, you know, what's the big deal kind of situation here. But this is something I want to play you guys as well, because this is the 2020, right before the 2020 election. Scott Jeffries came out again and spoke at a press briefing. And I want you guys to hear what he says in his press briefing. And it was regarding COVID just occurring and how they got to change their, you know, policies when it comes to the voting process in Arizona. So this is how he spoke. And watch his body language. Body language is key. 80% of communication is body language. Watch the body language.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just want to let everyone know that we've been working very diligently the last several months to implement the Board of Supervisors approved Election Day and emergency voting plan. But in the last several weeks, there have been some issues with us being able to identify enough supplies, whether those be cleaning supplies, and then we also had some polling locations fall out over the last few weeks. So last night with the board, we made the board made a decisive action to approve a plan and give me the direction to be able to reduce the number of voting locations that we would then be able to provide those voters and those voting locations with the supplies they need, those cleaning supplies, those sanitation supplies that we can then disinfect those high-touch surfaces in those polling locations. So those voters, if they wanted to vote in person, they'd be able to have that polling location be available to them, and then our poll workers would be able to make sure that all those high-touch surfaces were cleaned. So what this plan does is that we had 229 polling locations available prior to the plan, and then after the board's vote, I went and performed an analysis to make sure that all those voters had 151 vote anywhere vote centers. This now, we're taking this from those voters had 41 voting locations before these 151. Now they have 151 vote locations that they can choose from. And then with that, we're also going to be providing those voters with the options and the ability to, I'm sorry, I can't do this. Go ahead, Steve.
Come on, body language, folks. Look at this guy. Look at this scaredy cat. You see with his little shaky voice. Oh, what do I do? What do I do? And see, that tells you everything you need to know right there. Why was his voice shaky? Why was he looking nervous? Why did he couldn't finish his statement? Because he knew the guilt. He was feeling the guilt. He couldn't. It was weighing in on him. He couldn't handle it. He had to step away from the situation. He couldn't take the pressure anymore. So, I mean, this is the same guy. This is the 2020 election. He's talking about the polling sites had increased the number. So they're saying how, like I was telling you before, they only had like a few in certain areas. I want to say, like in that same area in the voting process in 2020, I mean, prior to 2020, there were, I think it's only like 14 polling sites, something like that. And then increased to like 140, 150 or some number like that. It was like 140, 240. I just know they increased them by quite a bit, and they cut them and they put them in a close location to each other. So if you're somebody trying to find one, you could easily go to one and be at the wrong location, even though it's so close to another one that you're getting mixed up in your head, and it's almost like done in a way to frustrate people. And who are they trying to frustrate? Because the only people because they know the majority of voters that are coming to vote are on the Republican side are coming win on election day. So Republican voters coming on election day is when you're seeing all these issues and problems because due to COVID or whatever, that they had to change the whole ruling, the system of the voting process and affect election day. But the ones who do early voters, who do absentee, they get the benefits of the whole voting process. And who are mostly who are they? Democrats. So the Democrats aren't the one getting punished or getting censored and getting, they're silenced. They're not the ones who are getting their vote oppressed. That's the ones on that's the ones on the right. The Democrats aren't getting dealing with voter suppression right now. So that's why they're doing these different rules on election day to affect Republican voters. So that's what we're witnessing right now. Now, I want to talk about some of the people who were witnesses on the Kari Lake side of things, because they played a very important role as well. And there's a couple and I can't unfortunately do all the witnesses for both sides, just, for this podcast I'm doing a 20-hour podcast. I just took the key witnesses from both sides and had them, and there's a couple I thought were key I couldn't unfortunately put in there. But I recommend you go and look at the trial because it has a lot of viable information, not just for, the whole Kari Lake trial, but for how Democrats are cheating a lot of elections around the country outside of the Kari Lake situation. And we know which election we're talking about. So I recommend you just take a look and kind of see what the witness is and compare the witnesses from both sides. You can kind of see just by not just, the fact that, Katie Hobbs is nowhere in sight right now, while Kari Lake is presenting herself and not afraid to present herself and present her stance on this whole matter. But look at the people who are representing them and speaking on their behalf in court. And you can kind of see, like, come on, which side is looking legit here. So the next person I want to speak about is a gentleman named Richard Boris. He was a pollster for the past 6 years, for quite a bit of time. So he's an experienced pollster, and he's one of the witnesses that Kari Lake had speak on his behalf. And the attorney drilled him for quite a bit of time and had quite a few questions. And I recommend you go watch, especially his testimony, because he really went through the whole gauntlet with the attorney that was the offense attorney for Katie Hobbs going after him. They were going back and forth, but he answered all the questions clear and detailed, and he laid it out. So there was something I wanted to play with the clip testimony, and it's two parts to the clip. It's edited because I want you guys to see two key points that he made, and they're at different times. So I had to edit out part of the video so you see the part that looks like it's been edited. You can see like a little skip. That's because a little in between I put a little subtitle of, hey, next clip coming, or so you guys will see the separation point. But listen to both because they're both key points. They're just different points, but I had them both here.
Bottom line here is that those who said they would cast their vote by mail or drop their ballot off by mail completed their questionnaire at a 93% rate. There are always going to be people who tell you that they're going to participate in your poll, but then don't, especially in exit polls. The rate for election day voters was only 72%. So that I can tell you that it's never happened to me before, ever.
And why is that significant?
It's significant because, looking at, we can go through it a lot more in depth, but looking at all the totality of it, there's no explanation for why these voters simply did not come back. They didn't cast their ballot. There's always going to be a difference, but the difference here is almost 20 points. It's roughly 20 percentage points.
Would it refresh your recollection if we brought your report to know the number of Republican voters that you determined were suppressed as a result of the election?
Percentages, we could absolutely do.
No, sir. I'm asking you came up in your report with an expected range of suppressed Republican voters. Do you recall that range?
Well, the range was, yes. The range was a low of 25,000 to a high of 40,000, yes.
Was that overall voters or Republican voters?
That's just that's overall votes that would have netted. What I did in the report, Mr. Olson, was explain how the net change in the vote would have been impacted.
What was that figure?
Well, that figure was between 2,000. It would have ranged between 2,000 hold for the current leader to roughly 4,000 for Ms. Lake.
Do you recall a range of 15,000 to 29,000 in your report?
Well, yes. That's opinion. We know the vote totals in these areas that we're talking about. We know what the margins were. In my opinion, in my professional opinion, this did have an impact on the outcome. It definitely impacted the outcome. The only question for me is whether it had the potential to change the result. And in my opinion, in my professional opinion, I believe it did have that. It was substantial enough to change the leaderboard. It was.
When you say change the leaderboard, do you mean that it would have
Ms. Lake
changed
would be
the
ahead
outcome?
right now. Ms. Lake would be ahead. Yes.
Wow. So I hope you guys are hearing this. This is serious here, folks. This is, and like I said, this is Richard Boris. This guy is a professional. He's been doing pollsters for over 6 years. Said in his life he has never seen such a difference. And if you guys watch, I recommend you watch his whole testimony because he breaks it down in such a detailed way of the whole polling process and how they go about it and how they're not doing like the old polling ways of doing things, and how that their formula is so exact and so detailed that they've were able to predict every single election for I think the past 10 years. I believe he said something. It was around that number of years accurately when it came to elections. And they're saying that they never got this wrong, ever. So how in the world did he get this wrong? He has no answer. He's like, how did a 93% rate of Democrats vote, but yet only 72% of Republicans? And he can't explain it. During the poll that they were doing, that people said before they voted that they were going to be casting a vote on either early voting or on election day. And they said that there's 93% of people that said they were going to do it actually did it on early voting, but only 72% on election day. And then you see about all the issues that happen on election day. And there was quite a bit of issues, quite a bit. And I kind of want to go over a few of them with you here. Yeah, find it here. Yeah, here we go. And this is a guy, DC Drano, who I follow online on Twitter. He has, very good content. I recommend you guys follow him, check out some of his content. But Rogan O'Hanley is his name. And these are just a few things that we saw occur on election day in Arizona. Okay, for here we go. Kari Lake partisans shut down machines on election day in GOP areas. Didn't count ballots at voting centers as required by law. Took over a week to count. No chain of custody documents as required by law. And this gets dismissed. Maricopa County isn't a banana republic. It's worse. Yeah, that's serious. That's serious. So this is what all happened on the day of voting day in Maricopa County in Arizona. And we, like I said earlier, we all know who mainly votes on election day, and that's Republicans. And you saw what they had to deal with. You had elderly people who just couldn't stand and wait any longer. So their bodies could not handle it. You had people with children. You had people, like I said, with responsibilities who had to go to work, who had all kinds of situations. And that occurred. That's why election day has to be as smooth as possible of a process. So people that, adults, all adults who are going to be voting, anybody 18 or maybe 18 or over. So when adults come to do their responsibility to the country, it's an easy, smooth process, and it gets done. And the fact that it didn't get done says a lot. And that there's one party that's always seems like to be behind that situation. But Richard Boris, he really clarified. Like I said, this guy, he breaks it down, man. He broke it down in such a detailed way of how to get the information that he said on election day he was shocked by the results because he just said it just didn't make sense. And there was another person that was a witness for Kari Lake that I want to play next. Her name is Heather Honey. She's a 30-plus year investigator plus a supply chain expert. She spoke as well, and I wanted to play her because I want you to see also how the attorney that's on behalf of Katie Hobbs, who's going against her, how he acts, with his body language and everything, how he comes at her to kind of try to, you can tell he's just trying to stomp her. He's trying to make her look bad in the courtroom, and she was not having it. So, I want you to play that next and give me your thoughts.
You're not an attorney, correct? No. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a legal question, but you only have to answer if you have an understanding about it. If you don't have an understanding, it's perfectly fine to say, I don't know. Are you aware that under Arizona law, a ballot is not actually unlawful if it is, the term that's used sometimes is harvested or ballot collection, but if somebody who is not authorized to handle it deposits it, or like what happened at Runback, if somebody brings it and inserts it into the stream, but not into a designated authorized drop box. Are you aware that under Arizona law that is not actually an unlawful ballot?
I think the term in the law is an invalid ballot.
Okay. Just 1 minute, Your Honor. Mm-hmm. No more questions. Thank you very much, Ms. Honey.
No more questions, I bet. So you see, we try to be like, that hot sitting on a high horse, like, I went to school for law and I studied law and I'm a high class attorney, yada yada. You try to come with that high class kind of attitude. So, if you don't understand the questions, feel free to let me know. Like, that like you're beneath me kind of, tone of voice and anything like that. And you saw she responded. He's like, she's wait till he was going on and on and on. Do you realize if a ballot is harvested, that technically by law, blah, blah. And she was like, yeah, but with all that said and done, it's invalid. So call it what you want to call it, but call a spade a spade. You cannot count a vote. You can't count that vote, period. That's all that matters. The vote can't be counted. You can call it what you want to call it, but it's not a legal vote. So that is the whole point. And she just said one quick response and shut him down. You see shuffling through his papers and, oh, okay, all right, Your Honor, and just rolled out. He just really embarrassed him. And this is like the stuff that we were seeing a lot from the Katie Hobbs side, not just the people that were testifying on her behalf, but people, even her attorney. And I'll get to the other attorney later on towards the end of the podcast. But you're seeing how these people act. Look how both sides are acting. Like if you were just I know they didn't do this. It's not a trial by jury, but if this was and you were in the jury, how can you not if you're seeing some of these things? And I recommend you guys watch the whole entire trial because you're seeing just clips of what I saw, some of the things I saw. But if you watch the entire trial, and I watched most of it, you'll see there's a lot of holes in the wall on their side, on Katie Hobbs' side. And it's blatantly obvious. It's embarrassing obvious. It's just right there in your face. Like, I don't know what else you need to see. Like, it's not like we're on the left. Like I said, we don't accuse without evidence. We have a lot of evidence, and it shows here. All right. So the next thing I want to discuss is the situation when it comes to another white witness that Katie Hobbs had. He was an expert eyewitness that was there. His name was Ryan Macias. And I want to play him because I want you guys to see his body language, and I guys want to see his tone of voice. I want you guys to check his eyes. See how he keeps looking like he for some reason they had him come and do a Zoom call. Like he didn't come into the courtroom like mostly everybody came into the courtroom, except for the couple of Katie Hobbs witnesses didn't come, but all of the ones that were Kari Lake, they came and spoke. But anyways, they had this guy on a Zoom call, and he looked like he was reading off like a teleprompter or something, and while he was talking. So I just want you guys to hear what he had to say, and also read his body language and kind of say, is something off with this?
Of the roles of the United States Elections Assistance Commission is to provide for a testing and certification program. It is the only federal testing and certification program. Another role is to develop the voluntary voting system guidelines, or the standards by which the voting systems are tested. A third role is to accredit the voting system testing laboratories. These are the laboratories in which the EAC utilizes to conduct the testing for voting systems against those voluntary voting system standards. And so I oversaw that process as the acting director of the Voting System Testing and Certification Program. And prior to that, and in that role as well, I performed all of the duties that I just described.
Little suspect. So, he was going over, some details of what his title and position when it came to the whole poll watching process was, and what it entailed. But it just looked like the whole time he was talking, he was like looking to the distance off of the teleprompter, like making sure he was reading exactly what somebody probably told him to say. I'm not saying that's the case. There's no confirmation that he was reading off a teleprompter, reading off some kind of script on the side there. It just, his body language looked suspect. His tone of voice wasn't stern or direct. And you see like the people speaking, like Richard Boris, who I played earlier, Heather Honey. If you watch her whole testimony, when they speak with confidence, in their voice. Like I said, I've done sales most of my life. That's big with me, body language and tone of voice, and just how you're carrying yourself during certain situations says a lot. And if you just looked at both sides, man, Katie Hobbs, witnesses were all looking kind of suspect, not knowledgeable on certain things, or or had holes on their stories, or switching up the story over and over again when they spoke on it. Just a lot of holes you got to check for. And Kari Lake, you didn't see that on her side as much, if at all, to be honest with you. So the next thing and the last thing I want to discuss on the trial is what I mentioned a little bit earlier with Katie Hobbs closing her attorney and his closing statements that he made. And I want you guys hear like certain words he uses when he talks about the people who are questioning this trial, like you and a lot of listeners here are questioning this whole situation that's going on with the Kari Lake election, and saying that there's suspect things happening in the whole case. And he comes up and pretty much speaks on people that are thinking like us, and he says his thoughts on the matter. And just let's look at some of the words he uses to kind of clarify his point of view as well. So it's kind of interesting, but let me get your thoughts.
Goes out and tells their voters, don't vote on day one of voting, early voting, day 2, day 3, all the way up to day 26 of early voting. Wait to the last second. That's political malpractice. You reap what you sow. Your Honor, the burden has not been met. When people come into this courtroom without evidence, there should be a day of reckoning. And this has been happening all over the country, Your Honor, and it's got to stop. And it's got to stop right now. And the place to stop it is right here in your courtroom, Your Honor, right here in Mesa, Arizona. This has got to stop. We got to get back to respecting elections because that's all we have, Your Honor. Different religions, different creeds, different ethnicities, different backgrounds. There's only one thing that makes us Americans, and that's we believe in choosing our own election, our own rulers, our own governors, our own mayors, our own presidents. And we do that through elections. And because of our forefathers' experience, those elections are split up. The 50 different states and all the different counties. And the legislature makes the rules, the counties follow the rules, you carry out the election, and you live with the results. If you lose, you live the fight another day. You don't go into court and spew conspiracy theories and spill sour grapes. Thank you, Your Honor.
Wow. So there's, again, with the conspiracy theorist label and title, aren't we past that by now? Haven't we proven ourselves right enough? So we're just drop this conspiracy theorist label that you're having people like us who think the way we think, a lot of us patriots out here, who are just fighting for truth, fighting against the establishment, the crooked establishment on the right and the left, on both sides, because there's corrupt politicians on both sides. And this is what we're up against. And you see how he's saying, like, oh, this is all that makes us Americans, or we are right to have elections. And yes, that's very important. That's one of the things that makes us American. That's not the only thing that makes us Americans. Okay. So you see how he just tries to put it all in just one little box. Oh, see, this is the only thing that makes us American. So we gotta do it this way. This is the only thing that makes us American. This is the way we gotta do it. See, this is how people on the left like to do. They like to put things in a box and put things somewhere where they can control and manipulate the situation. So he's saying, oh, this is the only thing that makes us Americans, our right to have elections, fair elections. Okay, so you're trying to say, okay, that's the only thing that makes us American, which is not. There's a lot more to it, but that's one very important thing. Don't get it twisted. But that's not the only thing. And then he goes off and says, oh, so we can elect our leaders or our rulers. Like, what? Our rulers? Like, man, you talking that dictatorship crazy talk, man? That's why we had that idiot from Ukraine coming over to our Congress and speaking, waving his flag around because of the way we're thinking right now. Our rulers, we're talking like some communists. Like that's commie talk right there. Like this is America. We don't use terms rulers to talk about people who are governing or on a local or federal level. That's not a term we use. Rulers. See, that's a lot of leftists. They already got that communist way of thinking. That's why they're probably getting taken over by communism. And then we have people on the right who are unfortunately a lot of them don't have backbone, and they cower down to the mob. So it's like that's why communism has been able to run rampant the way it has in our country in the last ever since to my opinion, since the Soviet Union's fallen, it's gotten worse because it's been more underground. And now we're starting to see it, man. We're starting to see it because it's like it's right in our faces right here. Look, there's still elections for crying out loud, people. Like, look what happened to Kari Lake. Look what just happened with Herschel Walker. Who knows the details of what that situation was? Look what happened in 2020 in the Trump election. Do we got to go back into that situation again? I had still getting videos taken down of what I said about that. And this is, and like I said, and that's how communism works. That's how they shut people down to censorship. And this is what we're dealing with right now. So the time is now. I give the utmost respect for Kari Lake. Much love for her. She's a warrior. She's a fighter. She has more backbone than 90% of Republicans out there right now. We need more Kari Lakes, more Trumps, and less Lindsey Grahams and Mitch McConnells, because that's the biggest issue that we're having right there. Where are Mitch McConnells and Lindsey Grahams right now on Kari Lake's behalf? Why does it take a Mike Lindell to come out of his pocket to help out Kari Lake when we had the GOP establishment right behind her, not doing anything? They could have easily helped her out. So, because she doesn't want to follow the narrative of being a rhino Republican. She's MAGA, America first. America first. And that's what brought me to the Republican Party. And that's what brought a lot of minorities, a lot of, Jewish, Muslims, whatever you want to name it, minority communities, groups over to the Republican Party was the MAGA movement. That's what it is. That we the people coming together, united we stand. That message is what brought so many Americans to the Republican Party. And these rhino Republicans want to just throw it to the side like it never existed. Like the MAGA movement is not real. and they want to join these Democrats. Like you see, they signed this omnibus bill, $1.7 trillion. Really? Siding with Democrats, a lot of these, not all of them, but a lot of them in the Senate, was about 18 or 20 of them. This is what we're dealing with, people. This is the uphill battle we're dealing with, and it's time for us to clean house. Like I keep saying in my speeches at these Republican events here in the city, I say it's time for us to clean house from the crawl space to the attic, and that's what we're going to do. And I respect Kari Lake. Shout out to Kari Lake. And there's one more tweet I want to play from her. Right here. I want to show you from her. And this is what she says. My election case provided the world with evidence that proves our elections are run outside of the law. This judge did not rule in our favor. However, for the sake of restoring faith and honesty in our elections, I will appeal his ruling. Thank you so much, Kari Lake. Like I said, a real patriot, true warrior, much respect. And I'm here. I'm on her side. I'm fighting full on for Kari Lake. I'm not looking at this like, oh, just give up or just move on like they did, like they've done in the past. Like a lot of Rhino Republicans just giving up. Just let it be. It's time for us to end that. It's time for this to go on offense. Because we're never going to bring any change to this country unless we're playing any offense. How are you going to score any points? You never go on offense. So it's time for us to do work as the Republican Party and this new MAGA movement that's established in the party. And it's time to get the Kari Lakes of the world in office one way or another, either by backing them to get them in office or by, if you had that kind of personality, that America First personality, you go out there and run and you get in office yourself. And that's what we got to do. But thank you so much for your time. Hope you guys enjoy the content. There's going to be a lot more videos coming the way. I'm back in New York, so back to the regular schedule. And like always, God bless everybody out there listening, and may God bless the United States of America. Peace out.